Well, good morning, fun lovers. This is George McClellan. This is George's Hour at Fetcher News TV, North Georgia's only live internet talk show, fyntv.com. Go there. Well, if you're already looking to it now, you're already there. Brian Pritchard covered a wrath of data in his 2 hours. And I'm going to pick up on some of it, but I'm going to do a little different. I'm not going to be quite so aggressive. In the debate between Pence and Kaine, the vice presidential contenders, the other night, one thing was evident: quality. Quality. Pence showed quality, and quality is the key to be taken seriously. Pence was professional, and he knew his subject. Kaine had memorized bullet points and just spitted them out like a machine gun, and thereby lost confidence of many people watching it, except Democrats. So we have what we saw there was a very good example of what I would call the authenticity, or the lack of authenticity. There's a gap between the Republicans and the Democrats, and it's an authenticity gap of data, information, and feelings. The Democrats are propagandizing everything. They're propagandizing everything. You tell a lie long enough and people will come to accept it. Obama talks all the time about how wonderful his administration has been for 8 years, and that he feels that he should be entitled to another 4 years. He could do another 4 years. We hear this all the time. So it's just propaganda is all it is. But this election cycle is a referendum on that gulf, that gap between the reality of a system becoming terminally ill and the illusion that everything is working out okay. Nowhere is this more important than in how the media is being marginalized. And they're being marginalized and they don't realize it. We're marginalizing them because we have tablets, we have internet, we have talk phones, iPhones, and our information is coming to us other than the mainstream media. But it is being marginalized and transformed, seriously transformed. The New York Times was once the mouthpiece. What they said was true. And now hardly anybody believes them. Their advertising is dropping off. People have stopped accepting that newspaper. The old guard media, the Times, have far less influence than they used to. And in the early days of alternative internet news, they lost the battle after battle after battle as we use the internet to get around the gating of information. They do in the service of ideology. They do it for ideology. When Twitter and Facebook were in their infancy, the libertarians in particular used those platforms as their springboard to growth. Twitter and Facebook loved the traffic. They grew exponentially in profits, and it is how they brought Ron Paul, the libertarians, is how they brought Ron Paul to the forefront in spite of his what they claim his shortcomings, to sincerely challenge for the 2011 nomination, the Republican nomination. And once they were successful, changes began occurring. Facebook kept making changes to restrict and compartmentalize political discussion until it was eventually caught openly promoting one viewpoint over the other. Facebook will now dump anything you put on there which is anti-progressivism, anti-liberalism, or anti-democrat. The new media darlings now have more power to shape public opinion than the old media ever did. Google excised Donald Trump's name from searches on presidential candidates until it was caught in the act, and which only fuels the distrust and disgust of people from all political strata that something is deeply wrong and someone is trying really hard to serve us tofu and tell us it's turkey. And this is what has fueled both the rise of Donald Trump and the fortunes of third-party candidates like the hapless Gary Johnson and Jill Stern for now. So when WikiLeaks released incontrovertible proof that the Democrat National Committee rigged the primaries for Hillary Clinton, it should have been an opportunity for everyone to come clean and show a little shame and a little honesty. Instead, the DNC doubled down on who leaked the email and why, trying to deflect narrative away from what they have been caught doing. In fact, a DNC operative was murdered. I'm just saying it. A fellow who was in this loop. Maybe they suspected him and decided to set in and make him an example. The classic this is classic baby boomer behavior, forever refusing to take responsibility for the messes they've made and continuing policies that extend their party just a little while longer, foisting the bill off on to their children. Well, the baby boomers, that's Marxism. That is absolutely the progressive plan, and they've been working it all along, trying to introduce that into the American body politic. They do it through their propaganda machines, the Times, the ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, all of those organs are part of the propaganda machine to promote the propaganda, the misinformation of the progressives' attempt to change America. Bernie Sanders was betrayed, but he betrayed his movement, and that hurt so many people when he actually stood up and said he would support Hillary Clinton. Now, what about these folks these slavish communist thinkers? They don't realize it, but they are. These communist thinkers. They were deeply hurt by Bernie Sanders, what they consider his betrayal. He was supposed to be the real thing. That's why he leaped to the forefront of news, because he was the real thing. But he wasn't. The ends of not electing a maverick like Donald Trump were bigger than the means of reforming the system he was supposed to despise. So instead of vilifying the party for acting like a bunch of thugs, Hillary supporters embraced the new Trump loves Putin, and they are both Hitler. The narrative you see on Facebook and Twitter is proving that maintaining their power is all that matters. This is the legacy of the progressives, and the mendacious Hillary Clinton is their messiah. While our political identity is adrift, well, their political identity is adrift. These overeducated millennials have a near obsession with natural things, real fiber clothing, lumberjack fashion, farm-to-table food choices. And God bless them. Their cultural identity is one big cry for authenticity in an ocean of obfuscation, and that is why no one at the DNC or the Republican National Committee has figured out. To the baby boomers, image is everything. To the progressives, these young millennials, image is everything. Platitudes and good intentions are enough to remake the world. It is our generation's job as we move into positions of power that we sell them on the truth. And we're running out of time. Our generation is getting a little older. No matter how awful the truth is there ever a generation up? If there is ever a generation up for the job, it is our generation right now. And that's why Trump's dark acceptance speech, if he becomes president, would resonate more with the voters than Hillary's policy challenged one. And it's why we have some measure of hope that something good will come out of this election. That authenticity gap was written by a fellow named Tom Lungo, L-U-O-N-G-O, and it comes out of his Resolute Wealth letter. He's a very prosperous financier, but he certainly focuses in on politics and what makes it tick. Brian talked about the Syria being Hillary's problem, and I was thinking coming in while I was listening to him, the silly notion when Hillary first became Secretary of State, going to Russia, meeting with the Russian diplomats, her counterparts, and presenting this little red plastic button, which, by the way, her fact checker screwed up. They had the wrong word in Cyrillic Russian, and so it wasn't a reset button. It was had some other meaning, and the Russians knew it, and she looked like an idiot. America looked like an idiot. So, but we have the problem. I will discuss that in my short take, my thoughts later, but I want to bring us up to the latest manifestations of the Syria problem. Syria, the picture of Syria is very, very complex because America has abandoned the Middle East. Obama has abandoned the Middle East, and he, not well, intentionally possibly, but certainly through inarticulate, inexcusable mistakes that prove that he is not a diplomat, he is not a statesman, he is a community organizer, and those people did not want to be organized by this thug from Chicago. On another front, the Syrian picture is complex. The Syrian government coalition, which includes Syria and Russia and China, who also, I might add, has an aircraft carrier and a cruiser in the Mediterranean, tightens the noose around Al-Qaeda and ISIS in Aleppo. Once again, for Gary Johnson's benefit, Aleppo is not canned dog food made out of camels. It's a town, it's a city, or it was a city, it's probably mostly rubble now. That masks further slips to reveal who is behind them. The U.S. and Kurdish forces in the east, who have been fighting ISIS, were making steady advances towards Aleppo, having taken the city of Manbij. But in August, last August, the Pentagon announced to the Syrian government a no-fly zone, a de facto no-fly zone over northeastern Syria. This was an attempt by Obama to begin the practice of partitioning Syria. Despite diplomatic niceties uttered by our current Secretary of State, the idiot Secretary John Kerry, who was a Vietnam vet, the U.S., in doing this, has formally invaded Syria without any cover of international law, and it is a last-ditch effort by Obama to salvage something from the nightmare he created by denying the Syrian government access to the resource and oil-rich regions under semi-autonomous control of the Kurds. The problem is Turkey, Iran, Iraq do not want the Kurds to form another stand, Kurdistan. They're all afraid of the Kurds because the Kurds are like the Irish. They fight for their rights and they're willing to fight. They'll even get female battalions of warriors out there combating Al-Qaeda and ISIS. So there's a problem for the Turks and the Syrians and the Iraqis, and I might add the Iranians, because part of what would be Kurdistan is really also in Iran. Well, by denying the Syrian government access to the resources that are under autonomous control of the Kurds. After that, Turkey crossed the Syrian border at Jarablus, throwing the entire region into chaos. The Turkish Prime Minister Erdogan move can be interpreted in a number of ways: pro-NATO and pro-Russian/Syrian. Now, how could invading Syria be a pro-Syrian move? Well, by cutting off the unification of the two Kurdish enclaves and forcing the Kurds in the east back into the Euphrates River area whence they came. This stops U.S. ambitions of creating a greater Kurdistan and breaking off parts of Syria, Turkey, Iraq, and Iran. Conveniently, it allows for a gas pipeline. Always follow the money from Qatar and Saudi Arabia up through Turkey to Europe. Always look for a purpose, and money is generally the way, points the way. Erdogan is really a savvy fellow. He put down the coup. He would never have been able to do that if he had not had help from the Russian KGB or the FSB. They provided the information about that coup, and in his one sweeping week, he arrested 5,300 government employees, military officers, and actually put an end to any attempts to remove him from office. So he's a savvy actor. His move into Syria was a strong power play to put Turkey in a position to benefit from whoever wins the standoff between America, US, and Russia. The lack of courage or the lack of outrage from Iran, Russia, and Syria over Erdogan's invasion tells us that this plan was discussed by Putin and Erdogan in Moscow to force the U.S. hand once again. We have buffoons running our government. John Kerry does not know how to negotiate. He doesn't even see the problems coming. They've staffed their groups with amateurs, from Obama's personal staff right up through the State Department. Amateurs, people who are not statesmen, have no idea what in the world they're doing. That's why we're in the mess we are. Obama drew his red line, and then he did nothing when it was crossed, because he did not know what to do. He had no idea how to do it, and so he just ignored the problem. Ignore it and it'll go away. That's Obama's motto. It's on his wall. Ignore it and it'll go away. All the same, at the same time, Putin made an offer to broker an end to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, using his unique position as a friend and an ally to all. If those talks are successful, the Middle Eastern map will be changed. And in my short take later, in my essay, I want to reveal some startling points that you didn't even know about. So I'm getting up on the time to listen to some words from our sponsors, and we'll see you on the other side.
Pizza Hut makes the best pizza in the entire universe, but they won't tell you that. I've been marooned on this planet for a while now. You are an impressive race. Your children know excellent hiding places. Your oceans aren't filled with lava. And you figured out how to combine a grilled cheese sandwich with a Pizza Hut pizza. Surely interstellar travel will soon follow. And then I can finally get back home. Round. Round like home. The grilled cheese stuffed crust pizza. Proof that no one out-pizzas the Hut.
I'm Sheriff Dane Kirby, and I'll stand up for you.
I'm Stacy Nicholson, Sheriff of Gilbert County, and I will stand up for you.
Stand up and speak out. No matter how rich, cool, talented you believe yourself to be, how you treat people ultimately tells all. I am Allison Sosby, District Attorney, and I'll stand up for you.
Hello, my name is Chad Watkins. I'm the manager at Larry's Body Shop. We are a family-owned and operated business and have been serving the North Georgia area since 1978. We are located at 1216 Progress Road in Ellijay, Georgia. Our shop specializes in collision repair, and we work with all major insurance companies. Larry's Body Shop is ICAR Gold, the highest role of training recognized by the collision repair industry. It is estimated that only 10% of collision shops meet these standards. Our shop consists of state-of-the-art equipment such as laser measurement system, down-drive spray booth, spot and MIG welding equipment. All of our paints are mixed on-site so that we can guarantee your paint to match every time. I know that having an accident can be a stressful event. We take pride in making sure our customers are satisfied with the repair of their vehicles. Our waiting area is clean and comfortable with free Wi-Fi and refreshing beverages. So if you're in an accident, stop Stop by and see us at Larry's Body Shop.
The Chevy Model Year End Clearance event is on at Days Chevrolet in Jasper with savings up to 16% off MSRP. Our biggest discounts of the summer. Save over $4,100 off a new Chevy Malibu, just $19,500. Huge truck savings too, up to $8,600 off loaded Silverado Crew Cab LT. Now only $33,500. Don't miss the Model Year End Clearance event at Days Chevrolet in Jasper.
Better days ahead, Days Chevrolet.
Find new roads.
Okay, welcome back. We've talked about the problems in Syria. Those are Hillary's problems, and they stretch across the Middle East. We will get back to them in a little bit. We have the other story that needs to be discussed, and that's the collapsing of Obamacare. The collapsing of Obamacare. Was it on purpose? Of course it was. It was designed that way. That's what the progressives do. Most Americans have seen the headlines about skyrocketing healthcare costs and premiums, and dropping and insurers dropping off because they can't afford it. But few people understand why these things happen and why they are happening. When you learn the story behind the trends, however, it is not hard to wonder whether the Obama administration is deliberately sabotaging Obamacare. And once again, yes, it is. It was planned that way. The idea seems absurd until you examine how badly the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS for short, has administered a critical part of the law, the so-called premium stabilization programs. Premium stabilization programs designed to help the individual marketplace adjust to Obamacare's new rules and prevent the market from entering a death spiral of increasing premiums and fewer choices, which is exactly what did happen. So the program that was supposed to prevent it actually encouraged it. There were very important programs to get right, and the administration has botched all of them. The administration, you know, we talk like these people are set up there, knowing what the hell they're doing, and they're not. Obama is a community organizer. That was his thing. That was his thing. He was a thug from Chicago, a community organizer. He had no experience administering a business, a job. He paid no salary, no paychecks. And when he gets into the White House, he brings his friends along. Also, college-educated morons. They know everything except how real life works. And they will produce a Marxist future for us, and that's what they're trying to do. The temporary risk corridors program, for example, was supposed to insulate insurers from the uncertainty they faced when setting rates in this new unpredictable market. Insurers who set their premiums too low would have most of their losses subsidized by insurers who set them too high. Repeatedly, the CMS assured us that this program would be budget neutral. They assured us. They told us it would be budget neutral. Then it suggested a taxpayer dollar could cover the deficits. Where'd that come from? Well, Congress was alert enough and adversely reacted to this bait and switch by inserting language into the appropriations bill of that year expressly forbidding CMS from using taxpayer money for this purpose, essentially requiring CMS to live by its word. Well, sure enough, the program ended 2014 with $2.5 billion more in insurers' claim than insurer collections. In other words, they were on the whole $2.5 billion. By law, CMS was required to pay the entirety of those claims to insurers. So it announced last month that the entire 2015 collection would be used to pay off the 2014 balance, with no money allocated for the 2015 insurer loss. Oh, this is a Ponzi scheme. This is how Ponzi schemes work. That means the 2016 insurer collection, the final year of the program, by the way, will almost certainly fall short of paying what the CMS owes to cover insurers' losses in 2014, 15, and 16. The Ponzi scheme is collapsing. Unfortunately, that means that the deficit will most likely be passed along to us, and it started already. Mitch McConnell is pushing this balanced budget, not balanced budget, this new budget, short-term budget, which includes increased payments for Planned Parenthood, increased payments for Medicare, for Obamacare. What in the world is going on? Why do we hire Republicans to be Democrats? And I can tell you, once Trump gets in office, as conservative voters out here, our mission is to start tearing apart the Republican Party and replace Republicans with conservatives, because the Republicans have lost their credibility. We cannot trust them anymore. And I make an exception with David Perdue. He's in the right place. I like David Perdue because he is a conservative. He's doing what he promised he would do. Well, that means the bill will be passed along to us in the form of large increases in premiums. That is precisely the result the program was designed to prevent. The lack of payment from the Temporary Risk Corridors program had a ripple effect that caused a different premium stabilization program to become deadly to many small insurers. The small insurers, well, now the big ones are even starting to leave. The Permanent Risk Adjustment Program was created to reduce insurers' incentives to take health status into account when enrolling individuals, in other words, preconditions. The program makes an assessment of the health status of each insurer's customer pool, not individuals, but a pool. So we're being classified again by the progressives and put into a category. And plans with healthier populations to pay into the program, while those with sicker populations receive money from it. It's a bait and switch. Just a bait and switch is what it is. So it sounds simple enough, but in practice, it hasn't, and it will not be easy. Larger established insurers, Aetna, for example, and Blue Shield and Cigna, and these people with developed specialty networks tend to attract much sicker customers than smaller ones. So smaller, less established insurers end up with relatively very large required payments under the program. So we're already losing. This should have been anticipated. It probably was. These people who push pencils around and put dots between numbers, they know what they're doing. Obama doesn't know what to do, and he just sets a program, and these people know how to administer it, actuaries. But they should have been anticipated and managed by smaller insurers. However, when taken in combination with the massive risk corridor shortfalls, where insurers only received 12.6% of their claim in 2014, the risk adjustment program ended up impacting them much more than they had anticipated. Well, duh, doesn't that not make sense? You have a bill, your insurer only pays 12.6% of it. What about the rest? Who's going to pay off the rest of it? Well, you are. These losses drove many of the smaller insurers off the exchanges. The ultimate result was fewer plans to choose from in the individual marketplace. So now we're getting right back down, we're narrowing down to where, the only thing left is single payer, and it has to be divided by the federal government. Do you believe that? Can you believe that? The federal government wants to run our healthcare system. They can't run our foreign policy. They cannot run our safety and security. They want to take over, DHS now wants to take over our voting, 50 states take over our voting, take charge of that, our election process. How's that going to go for us? Nothing. We got to get rid of government. It's the excessive government. There's a place for government, and it's protecting us from Canadians and Mexicans. That's what their job should be, invading. The program was designed to be budget neutral with one added wrinkle. Out of the $25 billion that was supposed to be collected during the 3-year life of the program, $5 billion was to be deposited in the U.S. Treasury to pay for an unrelated program. Perhaps predictably, CMS did a poor job of assessing and collecting the funds. Only $9.7 billion of the required $12 billion was collected for 2014, about 20% short. Only $6.4 billion of the required $8 billion was collected for 2015, about 20% short. The total collection for 2016 enrollment, we're still in 2016 right now, has not been completed, but the formula that CMS used to determine how much insurers would have to contribute to the reinsurance fund seems to have been based on the same faulty formula that caused 2014-2015 collections to come up 20% short for each year. Well, duh. How about that? It is tempting to blame this under collection on incompetence, except for one significant detail. CMS issued its final rules for 2016 enrollment in March of 2015. Several months after it had collected the vast majority of the 2014 funds, officials knew the formula they were using was wrong, but stuck with it for 2016 collections anyway, guaranteeing failure. Guaranteeing failure. As a result, not only have insurers received less money than budgeted to recoup the lessons they sustained from lowering their premiums, but the U.S. Treasury has not only received $500 million of the $5 billion it is owed, only $500 million of $5 billion it is owed. Assuming the 2016 collection also falls 20% short again, and it will, the CMS will owe about $8.5 billion to insurers and the Treasury Department combined, with only about $4 billion available to pay for it. Oh, my goodness, my goodness. Again, this means American taxpayers will bear the burden, either in the form of more debt to be paid with higher taxes, or in higher insurance premiums to make up for the losses. In short, all three of the premium stabilization programs that were supposed to make Obamacare workable were administered by the CMS in a way that helped drive insurers from the field, out of the market. Whether intentional or not, the conclusion is inescapable. President Obama's Department of Health and Human Services has pushed the individual market into a death spiral. Insurers are fleeing the marketplace and premiums are expected to spike dramatically. The average proposed increase for 2017 is 24%. Can you afford that? I can't. So as Hillary Clinton and other Democrats propose more big government health care as solutions to the crisis the big government created, ask yourself if this was their intent all along. It is in the Marxist playbook that the government run everything, including health care. This is right out of Karl Marx's playbook, and I have discussed that. So it's important to know that. All right. Oh, that was yesterday's note. Didn't you like the comment Kane made? He is Hillary's right-hand person. Are those people complete idiots? Do they expect us to sit around and believe that? The right-hand person, I'm not her right-hand man. Political correctness is killing us, folks. Absolutely killing us. I was not going to, I'm going to talk for a minute or two, I think, on the Georgia hospital situation. There's some new information out here that is interesting. The more hidden facet of the presidential contest is about expanding the number of people who receive assisted health insurance coverage in the state, Georgia, and about the survival of Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta and Memorial University Medical Center in Savannah, if the hurricane doesn't blow it away. Never mind the dozens of smaller hospitals already winking out in rural Georgia. Within the next few days, a task force deputized by the Georgia Chamber of Commerce is expected to unveil a cafeteria-style plate of choices for expanding Medicaid rolls in the state under the auspices of the Affordable Care Act. So far, what we've heard is that the plan will be as conservative as possible. Can you believe that? That's coming from politicians. But that could include premiums, and that could include increased copays. A few members of the state legislature at whom the work is aimed have already seen portions of this attempt by business leaders to revive a Georgia debate that was quickly shut down after the Obamacare received congressional passage in 2010. Now remember, no Republican, not one in Congress, not one Republican in either the House or the Senate voted for Obamacare. This is strictly a Democrat show. Other lawmakers have pretended being kept in the dark. Oh, I didn't know. Like Hillary says, she does not recall making a joke about sending a rocket to kill Julian Assange. I don't remember doing that. That's the best excuse in the world. It doesn't work in the courts, but it does work in the court of public opinion, apparently. It doesn't work for the FBI. Oh, if that's the case, then you must be right. Other lawmakers have preferred being kept in the dark. Some have pretended to be kept in the dark. One said, I purposely have kept an arm's length from the chamber. I know all those people. I could have called them, but I purposely have not done that because I want them to be independent and come up with some new ideas. And that was Renee Unterman, a Republican from Beaufort, and she is the chairwoman of the State Health and Human Services Committee. She did put one demand on the chamber. She said, I don't show up on January the 1st and tell us what we're going to do. You don't show up on January the 1st and tell us what we're going to do. That's very prudent that they're coming out now so we can think over and digest what they are suggesting. All right, she's on the right track. She's trying to protect us, I hope. Once out, the Georgia Chamber initiative will require several months of discussion. And not just because the repeal of Obamacare has been coming out now, so we can think over and digest what they're suggesting. I missed my line there. And not just because the repeal of Obamacare has been a rote line in every GOP campaign. Yes, that's it. Our congressmen that we keep sending back to Congress every 2 years, they keep saying, yes, we're going to repeal Obamacare. And we don't hear, they're refunding Obamacare. They keep funding money to Obamacare. Important bridges must be crossed before we can debate. The real debate can begin. If Trump is victorious on November the 8th, Republicans presumably would have control still of both the U.S. House and the Senate, and the Georgia Chamber of Commerce venture would likely be stillborn, replaced by a Washington-based effort to do away with Obama's signature domestic accomplishment. Should Clinton win the White House and Republicans maintain control of Congress, the 6-year status quo on health care in Georgia would extend at least 4 more years, putting more strain on efforts to bring economic development to areas of the state outside major urban areas. If Democrats win the presidency and the Senate, well within the bounds of possibility, then a President Hillary Clinton would be positioned to put extreme pressure on red states such as Georgia that have been reluctant to cooperate with Obamacare by ending millions of dollars in federal subsidies for hospitals that provide indigent care. The subsidies have long been scheduled to be dropped under the new system. Grady Memorial in Atlanta and Memorial University in Savannah would be hard put to maintain their current levels of service, and Georgia could be forced into Obamacare negotiations. That's if Hillary wins. Even as restrictions on coverage are maintained in Georgia, Medicare rolls are already expanding. In January, the Department of Community Health will ask the General Assembly for an additional $300 million. And I'm being signaled it's time for a few words from our sponsors, so we'll be back, catch you on the other side.
El Rey and Ellijay.
El Rey Mexican Restaurant.
Family owned and operated and a local favorite for families, parties, and meetings.
Great prices.
Friendly service and delicious Mexican cuisine.
Patio dining available.
Come sing in Carlos's Cantina every Friday 9 to 1.
Eat in or take away.
Same location for 14 years. Open 7 days at the corner of Maddox Drive and 515. North Georgia's favorite Mexican cuisine. El Rey and Ellijay.
Pizza Hut makes great pizza, but they can't tell you what a gift it is. I can. They took a grilled cheese and combined it with stuffed crust pizza. To think, I almost wasn't here to try it.
How did you?
It's not important, Jan. What's important is that I watched the sunrise this morning. Then I got to stand in a room filled with this pizza. And later I'll stare at the ocean. Or maybe I'll learn Russian. Or listen to jazz. Or try my hand at needlework. Or open a door for a beautiful woman. Or read a human interest story or make dessert wine. Or ride a wild horse. Or experiment with watercolors. Eat every slice like it's your last. Especially you, Doug. Especially Doug, right? You care about Doug. The grilled cheese stuffed crust pizza. Proof that no one outpieces the Hut.
North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds. Come on in to view the area's largest selection of fine jewelry at North Georgia Diamond. All repairs and designs are done on site by our jewelers. And North Georgia Diamond has the lowest prices on loose diamonds. You can also sell your gold, silver, and coins at North Georgia Diamond between Walmart and Lowe's in East Ellijay. Locally owned by Bill and Allison Craig, North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds in North Georgia.
What you gonna do with all that junk?
Well, welcome back. This is George McClellan at Fetcher News TV on North Georgia's only live internet talk news channel, fyntv.com. If you want to contact me, I can be reached at 706-889-9700 or George fetchingnews.com. An email would. I'm going to finish up the hospital notes that I had collected. Expansion of Medicare could be a larger challenge for Georgia's political middle than the 2015 passage of nearly $1 billion tax increase to repair Georgia's roads and highways. But it would probably require a similar artifice in an alliance of Republicans and Democrats for that passage. The balancing act would be a delicate one. It would be hoped that the solution could come from the Republican caucus, said State Representative Buzz Brockway of Lawrenceville. I'd hate to see the House Speaker put in the position where the only way it passes is he has to go to Democrats. And then we're talking about Speaker Ralston, of course. On the other side, Democrats, such as State Senator Vincent Fort of Atlanta, said, we want Medicaid expansion, but we want it to be done the right way, to help as many people as possible, which means we need to include up front. We need to be included up front. If walking that tightrope weren't difficult enough, several complicated issues are likely to be wrapped around any Medicaid expansion debate. For instance, a bed tax on hospitals. That first passed in 2010 and was used to draw down $750 million in federal money, and it is expected to expire next year. Then there's the fierce state capital fight over state issue certificates of need. And we've talked about that for Gilmore County because we've lost our little hospital. We have a little room up there, I think, emergency room, but we have no hospital anymore. And we are in danger of losing our certificate of need. Who thinks up these ideas? Either you have a hospital or you don't. You want one or you can't have one. You need one and you can't afford it. I mean, they're always a bureaucrat, a politician, creating some device, certificate of need. Well, anyway, it still is the law, and it restricts where and how hospitals and clinics can compete throughout the state. I see. Competition is not required. You can't have a hospital or clinic if you're going to compete with one that's already there, one that the state pays for or the county pays for. I believe we were a capitalist society where competition is required. Now, what these hospitals do is they combine themselves, they join together or whatever, but so not everybody's fishing out of the same pond, but competition is what's required, I think. They're all intrinsically tied together. It's the wave of a tsunami splashing up against the state. But the Health Committee chairwoman, and that I'm talking about Unterman, hinted at some of the gears that might already be turning, especially on the Medicaid expansion issue. Instead of a separate piece of legislation that would put lawmakers on the spot, the initiative could be lumped in with billions of dollars of other choices. It really doesn't have to be a bill. It could be written into a budget, and you vote on the budget. And Georgia requires a balanced budget. So that's the few words I collected on the hospital thing. And I'm going to give you the benefit of my personal thought that I have written down. And I'm going to go back to the problems in the Near East. I call it the Near East because that's the way I learned it when I was a little boy in school, the Near East. I think they call it the Far East now. Well, Far East was China, Middle East, Near East. Anyway, I entitled this one, Realignment in the Near East. Well, who would have guessed? Dig a hole and somebody will fill it. Not much was said on U.S. national TV about Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to Vladimir Putin about last month. There was a just ignore it, maybe it will go away reaction. Even less, I fear, will be said about the return visit of Russian First Deputy Chief of the General Staff, General Nikolai Bogdanovsky, to Israel. There's a subtle shift going on here. No, it's a major realignment between regional powers going on to fill the hole created by Obama's feckless leadership occurring right now, and America is not a part of it. Remember, in the Near East, Israel is a major war power because it too is possessed of a nuclear capability. And that makes it a big guy on the block. Israel's main problem is Hezbollah. Russia's military mission needs good battlefield intelligence on the ground in Syria. Who better to perform that work? Israel. Of course. Now, by agreement, it appears, Israel will submit to Russia its request to neutralize Hezbollah in exchange for Russian request to assist the Russian army military intelligence operations in Syria. That's a done deal. Keep your eye on the news and see if you can identify these things. The exchange shows that Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin have agreed in principle on several important issues, including a Russian pledge to stop the flow of weapons from Syria to Hezbollah. 2, Russia will now allow the Israeli Air Force to carry out air operations in Syria, even in areas where the Russian army is stationed on the Syrian coast without interference. Such a deal. Who can deny? That's good for Israel. And America's not there. We have no say in this. We have no word in this. Senior officers in the Russian and Israeli air forces will discuss the protocols for the coordination of Israeli overflights of Syrian airspace to avoid any conflict with Russian aircraft in their operations. More than likely, Israel will request Russia to coordinate its moves in the Mediterranean in a manner that does not affect Israeli submarines gathering intelligence about Lebanon and Syria. Just a reminder too, another player in the game is China, that has an aircraft carrier and a cruiser now conducting support operations in the eastern Mediterranean with the Russians. The damage that Obama, the community organizer, has inflicted on America's world standing will take years and years to repair. No country can be successful in the execution of its foreign policy if it lacks the trust of its clients. Israel, the only democratic state in the area, is despised by Obama. A further addendum to his self-styled crypto-Islamic status, Egypt's government, once a strong U.S. ally, was literally stomped into the dust by Obama's active support of the Muslim Brotherhood. Egypt quickly put an end to that nonsense after a year, and now also courts the Russians for its protection. The former First Lady and the Secretary of State engineered the fall of Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, leaving North Africa a bloody enclave of the Muslim Brotherhood hegemony. And it's interesting. They say they were trying to sneak weapons into Libya. No, the plan that got the American ambassador and 3 of his bodyguards killed was the plan to sneak Libyan weapons into Syria. And it's also manifesting itself in today's news when the FBI said they would not prosecute this arms dealer who the State Department had used to do the moving. Oh, the plot thickens. If the guy gave evidence in a trial, it would be disastrous for progressives in the Democrat Party. U.S. policy in the Middle East is in tatters. We know that. Obama pivots to the Far East to confront China, figuratively. And yet, there sits China's only aircraft carrier in a Syrian port. World leaders who matter, Putin of Russia, Xi of China, and Netanyahu of Israel, have taken Obama's measure and no longer even consider offering him a seat at the table for their discussions. America's intelligence communities are in a near fit of apoplexy, wondering how they can perform their duties to protect America if all the avenues of information available to them simply dry up, especially Egypt and Israel. Finally, because our Congress is so decimated and debilitated by political correctness and fear of the press, they have also dropped their oversight missions necessary to see, understand, and react to the damage that Obama's government is doing to our safety and our protection as a nation. Folks, we're in real trouble. And we have abandoned the two things that has made America great: a belief in God and the Constitution of the United States of America. Remember, freedom is the goal. The Constitution is the way. Now, go get them. And for the last few minutes, what I got, 2 minutes? 2 minutes. Well, I'll get somewhere here. I got, oh yes, I wanted to present, I had this online. Here's a piece of law I want to read for you. Former United States Attorney General Michael McCarthy told MSNBC not only is Hillary Clinton's private email server illegal, it disqualifies her from holding federal office. Very specifically, he points to one federal law, Title 18, Section 2071, 2771 of the U.S. Code. I will read to you what it says. Quote, A, whoever willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, or destroys, or attempts to do so, or with intent to do so, takes and carries away any record, proceeding, map, book, paper, document, or other thing filed or deposited with any clerk or officer or of any court of the United States or in any public office or with any judicial or public officer of the United States shall be fined under the title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. B, whoever having the custody of any such record, proceeding, map, book, document, paper, or other thing, see discs, willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, falsifies, or destroys the same shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for not more than 3 years or both, and shall forfeit his office and be disqualified from holding any office under the United States. As used in this subsection, the term office does not include the office held by any person as a retired officer of the armed forces of the United States. Shouldn't voters know that? I've just told you. Shouldn't our Attorney General Loretta Lynch know that? I bet she does. But like other things, she's just ignoring it. Shouldn't the President of the United States know that? Yes, he should. But the media won't tell us. So I'm telling you right now. So that's it for me for this week. Tomorrow, FYN-TV will be up at Sycamore Station in Blue Ridge, doing a great little show up there. If you live up there and you want to go in there and say your bit, by all means, you go in there and say your bit and sit with and watch the show. It's out of doors. Hopefully it won't rain on them. Hopefully we need the rain. There's a 20% chance of rain, they say, but all that means is, yes, it's going to rain. And you only have a 20% chance of getting some. And that's what it means. But it's a short 20%. So that's it. Cole, you can take us out. I am.